Hello and welcome. Thanks to everyone that's tuning in. I'm Natalie Chmiko, Vice President of Pure Michigan Business Connect and International Trade at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. So today we're here talking about Industry 4.0, what it is, why it matters, and what we need to be doing here in Michigan to turn automation in manufacturing into a strength for our economy and our workforce rather than a risk. There's no one better to do that than Tom Kelly, Executive Director and CEO of Automation Alley, a critical partner of ours helping to enable small and mid-sized manufacturers across the state to be in a position to adopt Industry 4.0 technologies. Just a note for our audience, if you have any questions throughout the conversation, please feel free to drop your question in the comment section and we'll address those during the live stream. So let's jump right in. So welcome, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Natalie.
So let's start with the basics. I know a lot of people have heard of the term Industry 4.0, but may not really know, what it means for their business. So in the most basic terms, how would you define Industry 4.0? And could you give us some examples of the types of technologies it involves?
Yeah, so Natalie, Industry 4.0 is a term that came out of Germany. And it really stands for the fourth industrial revolution. So the first was steam. The second industrial revolution, Michigan invented. It was Henry Ford in the assembly line meeting Thomas Edison and the electric motor, and that changed manufacturing. The third industrial revolution was when computers and robots kind of came on the scene at the same time, mechanization along with automation. That was the third. And now we're in the fourth. And the fourth is the digitization of everything. And every one of these industrial revolutions, the companies that succeeded on the end of the revolution were not the ones that were succeeding coming into it. So it creates great risk, great disruption. And Michigan and our manufacturers in Michigan, and all over for that matter, are at great risk because it's in this fourth revolution that people that were doing the second and third revolutions are almost not equipped to handle the fourth. So Michigan created and owned the third and the second and the third. So we've built trillions of assets over 100 years based on assembly line manufacturing and mass manufacturing. And we're now moving to a world of mass customization and products of one and 3D printing, which is the exact opposite of additive. And so we need to all pay attention. That's what Industry 4.0 is, focusing on how you digitize and come up with new business models. So while there's great opportunity, Natalie, it's also great risk right now for the players that are entrenched in the market today.
Thanks, Tom. So can you tell us a bit about your work and the role that Automation Alley is playing in Industry 4.0 readiness?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Automation Alley is Michigan's Industry 4.0 Knowledge Center. We are in tight partnership with the MEDC, with the MMTC, with other organizations around the state that try and help manufacturers navigate the complexity of this technological shift. So we have 1,300 members today. We'll talk a little bit about what we're doing with the MEDC regarding future membership, but that 1,300 all resides within the state of Michigan. It's actually a rather large group. And we have large manufacturers and small manufacturers and tech companies and academics and government economic development organizations all trying to understand how do we navigate this disruption. And so as a knowledge center, if you have knowledge, we expect you to bring it and share it. If you need knowledge, you can come here and get it. So we're an inclusive think tank, if you will, just trying to figure out how do we give knowledge so that manufacturers can create competitive advantage on the global stage. Because I got to tell you, every country in the world, ironically, other than the United States, has an Industry 4.0 strategy that is industrialized today. And they're all coming for our lunch. And they've been doing it for decades. And we need to get on the bandwagon and say, this is actually in America's interest to adopt Industry 4.0 because we would be so good at it.
Right. So, it sounds like we need to make a change. We need to do something So in your opinion, what do you believe is the biggest barrier for our manufacturers to adopt Industry 4.0 technology, and what can we do to help them?
Yeah, you know what's interesting is that Industry 4.0 is a technological problem. There's all these new technologies, think artificial intelligence, 3D printing, virtual reality, augmented reality, advanced materials, big data. All of these technologies, any one of them can be, sort of disruptive, but when they're all taken together, they really cause fits for manufacturers because they have to focus on all these things. But it's not the technology that we tell manufacturers to focus on. Any CEO that talks to me, they say, what do I got to do to sort of get my head around this? Say, the most important thing that will be the predictor of your success is culture. Do you have a culture of learning? Do you have a culture of tolerance and of failure, that you are tolerant of taking risks and failing, and understanding that this Industry 4.0 transition is all about learning and becoming educated and moving fast and being tolerant of failure. And in manufacturing, what makes that so difficult is we were taught for 40 years, Natalie, that you lean out your process. You don't have any waste whatsoever. Everything is super efficient. You don't take risk because risk means scrap. And here comes this overlay of Industry 4.0 that says risk and innovation is all you're going to have going forward, because the capital and the systems you've put in place to have competitive advantage to this point are going to begin to break down. So my number one advice to any CEO or executive listening today is you have to adopt a culture of learning, and you have to build a culture of trust that allows people to take risks and fail, because the world's moving too fast for you to just manage a process in a way that thinks you're going to just drive 5% out of the process every year forever, which is the way we did it for the last 20 years.
That's great advice. And I think the other thing is, take baby steps with this. You don't need to, take huge chunks out of this all at once, and just try and get the information that you can.
We call it, and Natalie, we call it option-like bets. That's one of the pillars. We say, hey, change your culture. And then as you allow people to take risks, we're not talking about betting the farm. We have, if I can embellish here, we have an example where small manufacturers ask me all the time, Industry 4.0, that's for the big guys. They got lots of money. They got an R&D budget. We can't get started. And I say, that's baloney. What you need to do is, there's sensors that exist now that are $20. They measure heat, vibration, current, all kinds of things. They come in one sensor. It's $20. Put it on a machine, any machine, and hook it up to your phone, and then see what that data tells you, right? So there's no excuse. There is no budget too small for you to get started collecting data, seeing what's happening. Put a camera in your plant and see what happens. Does a cat run by at midnight? I don't know. But the point is, do something and start to learn and say, what does that tell me? Is that useful? And then keep taking those baby steps. So you are spot on in that whole point of get started.
Yep. So as far as the, companies trying to learn this and trying to, do this for their business, have you come across any great examples of companies that have done this well, have been really intentional about their strategy around Industry 4.0? And can you give us talk about that example and what went right to get them to succeed?
Yeah, so there's a great example that I just heard. And we hear examples all the time, but so Natalie, I need to share with you and the audience, for the audience that isn't aware, so Automation Alley has been doing a project called Project Diamond, where we have been distributing very expensive $20,000 printers to 300 manufacturers in the state of Michigan. And what we're allowing them to do is be a part of an entire network. So all of these small manufacturers that have never been in 3D printing before, all of a sudden have production capable printers that can print in carbon fiber, finished carbon fiber. And so one of those 300 manufacturers came into me, the CEO, and he said, I was skeptical. He said, but I took the grant because I wanted the printer. I didn't exactly know what we were going to do with it. And he said, we forced them to print a badge that says they understand 3D printing, right? So they figured out how to use the printer, and they printed this badge. And he said, I couldn't get over how strong it was and the finish quality of the carbon fiber that we printed to. He said, we buy a valve from a vendor. It's a little stainless steel valve. It's a thorn in our side. It costs us $100 a valve to get this. And it's stainless steel because it's in a corrosive environment. And he said, our engineers thought, could we actually print that? So they printed, they took their drawing, they converted it to a 3D printing drawing. They printed it. They put it in their cycle test. He told me they got 42,000 cycles, which was bigger than the number of cycles they get off the stainless steel actual little valve. And he said, Tom, you're not going to believe this, but guess what it cost me now to make that part? I said, I don't know. He said, $1. It cost me $1 worth of material. I just took 99% cost. And now my engineers are drinking the Kool-Aid and they're blowing up our machine and like, oh, we could print that and we could print that and we could print that. This was a skeptic. He said, Tom, I was skeptical of what we could do with a 3D printer. And I never would have invested $20,000 in this printer because I wouldn't have known or had the confidence that I could get the value out. He said, but man, we are all in now. And if we can replicate that over and over again, this is how you take small manufacturers and get them to say, you know what, I can do this. I know exactly what I'm doing. And thank you for unleashing me. So now I can truly innovate again. And I'm not just tied to this decreasing revenue cycle of, hey, it's great your contract was $1 this year, next year it's going to be 95 cents, the year after that it's going to be 90 cents, because that's the auto supply game we're in, where it doesn't matter what you're doing today, you got to sell it cheaper next year. That was the innovation cycle, the lowest common denominator supplier. And what you're seeing is the bottoming out of that and the recognition that resilience and agility and customization is coming back in vogue. And this is going to be very important for people to pay attention to. So I hope that was a good example.
Yes, thank you. It's amazing how this kind of transformation it exponentially, the time frame at which this change can take place is incredible. I know we have a question from our audience. So does the MEDC and Automation Alley bring manufacturers, academia, and Industry 4.0 vendors on pilot projects?
Absolutely. Bring it. And it's not I4O Alley, it's Automation Alley, who happens to be Michigan's I4O Knowledge Center. But I love it. We may adopt I4O Alley. Who knows?
There we go.
That might be our new brand. Of course we do. Please reach out to me, because that's the whole point, is how do we assemble, no manufacturer, I don't care if you're GM or Ford, no manufacturer has the capability to understand all of the dynamic changes that are occurring among all of these technologies at the same time. It's way too difficult. You need a community, you need a village to help you understand and make sense. And you work on AI over here in a pilot, and this pilot group is working on 3D printing. We have multiple pilots going and multiple roundtable groups talking about issues. We have groups around AI. We have groups around regional ecosystem. We have groups around home-based manufacturing, because we have to start talking about that. It's manufacturing that's really big and capital intensive is going to become really hard to do, because if you can distribute it, think about it. We have 300 manufacturers with printers, all blockchain together on our network. We can behave as one of the largest tier ones in the world. Nobody, no manufacturer, and not even GM or anybody, not even GE, who's in this space, has 300 printers in close geographic proximity that can make 300 parts at a time. That's a game changer.
It's incredible.
And we need to continue to do that. So we welcome it. If you're listening, reach out to us and let's figure out a great pilot.
We have another great question from Brian. Tom, as a career and technical education director charged with preparing our students for the future, are there Industry 4.0 resources that can be shared with our schools? It's a great question.
Absolutely. So there's multiple resources. So I'll get to the students last, but so we work with deans of engineering departments to help them tell their stories of the schools that they're in charge of, right? Like, what is it about your engineering group that is unique? because schools tend to specialize, or they have academic professors that are very good at maybe robotics, but maybe not so good at materials, or maybe they're great at AI, right? And we want to tell those stories because we want to marry industry with academia. Now, on the student side, let me give you an example. So the pilot we're working on with Project Diamond, where we have 300 printers, guess what? These are all small manufacturers that don't necessarily have the design capabilities in-house. And what we're saying is, why can't we marry them with students in classes all over Michigan? Students would love to work on real world problems. So the manufacturer knows what they want to do, marry them with students in academia to say, hey, let us help you design this actual part, and we'll make it 3D printing ready. And we'll actually print it in our 3D shop here at whatever school we're at. And if it works, we'll just ship you the drawing, right? It's a digital file at that point. What a great way. And then I could see a scenario where we're saying, hey, that student in the summer, why don't you go work at that little manufacturer? And this is a pipeline that can never occur otherwise, because the little manufacturer doesn't know how to find that student, and the student doesn't know how to find that little manufacturer. So what do? They end up taking a job out of state with some big manufacturer somewhere else, never to return. We need to build a pipe that is sticky for the talent that we have, sticking right to Michigan. And by the way, these kids would be thrilled to be able to be a big fish in a little pond. If you are a CAD engineer coming into a small manufacturing, that manufacturer would love having you, and can pay just as well, because you're creating a lot of value. So that's the kind of pipe we want to put together, Natalie.
That's a great solution for, all of the companies across the state that are having talent challenges in their manufacturing, and let's build a pipeline, while they're still in school, and get them involved in what the companies are working on. So I really like that idea. So I want to kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about, I know we're working really closely on this statewide initiative to help businesses prepare for these transformations. Can you talk a little bit about our effort and the resources that Automation Alley can provide businesses looking to adopt these kind of technologies?
Well, so Natalie, I'll give you a couple of things we're doing today, and then I'll talk to you, and about this, the really cool thing we're doing with the MEDC. So MEDC has been our partner in this for years and has helped defray the costs on some pretty major initiatives. So one of the initiatives that we've been doing for the last couple of years is our Integrate conference. It's Integrate. It's how all of these technologies come together. It's held at TCF Center every year. Of course, this year in October, it's always held in October or November. This year we had to do it digitally, which was fun for everybody, but we hope to get back to the TCF Center in the fall. Everybody should be attending that conference. The last time we did it live, we had 1,100 people, and all of them focused around Industry 4.0 and the complexities. So you get tech companies and large and small manufacturers and government and academia, and everybody's talking about these problems. And it really is a powerful conference that we put on. We also have what we call tech takeovers every week. So every Wednesday, you can tune in. It's live streamed, and it might be a topic on AI, or it might be a topic on 3D printing, or it could be a topic on cloud computing or virtual reality. And just come in and observe what's happening. Maybe ask a question or two, like we're doing here, disseminating knowledge. So we have what we call our Tech and Industry Report, which is the tech stuff that we do every Wednesday. That's really about what's right now, right? It's things you can implement in your manufacturing facility today. The Tech and Industry Report is kind of what's coming over the hill and around the bend that you need to pay attention to. And that's where we marry up with our academic institutions, and they help us, the academics, the professors, to say, what should we be paying attention to related to AI? What should we be paying attention to related to 3D printing? And so those things are all sort of knowledge transfer, if you will, how we get knowledge. But what's really cool is, so we just entered into this partnership, Natalie, where the MEDC is helping us defray the costs for every manufacturer in the state of Michigan. Any manufacturer, large, small, indifferent, you can come to Automation Alley and you can get a free membership where you can attend those tech takeovers. You can get a copy of the Tech and Industry Report. You can come to integrate this digital online sessions that we have. So what we want to take the barriers away and say, I don't want to hear any excuses of why you can't get the knowledge you need to make great decisions to change your business model to align with the digitization of everything, right? You need a digital mindset that happens to overlay on a physical business. If you think people like Mary Barra from GM, she said, I hope when I retire, this is one of her quotes, that people will view GM as a tech company that happens to make cars, right? Jamie Dimon said, today, we're a tech company that happens to be in the finance and banking industry, right? It doesn't matter how big or small you are, you must be a tech company that happens to be in manufacturing, right? And this is the thing that people are not paying attention to. So I'm super excited about just the fact that if you're a manufacturer, come on in and let's start sharing this knowledge with you.
And Automation Alley has tons of great resources, like you mentioned, and just constantly coming out with new content for companies and manufacturers across the state. So we have
it's not our content. So in other words, we're just the matchmaker. So the academics are providing content, the tech companies are providing content, the professional service organizations. We did a great study with Accenture and the World Economic Forum. By the way, I didn't even mention we're an advanced manufacturing hub for the World Economic Forum. There's only 2 in the United States. The other is MIT, and there's only 12 in the world. So talk about access to global knowledge. If anybody understands the 4th Industrial Revolution, it's the World Economic Forum, because they have so many powerful institutions that they're working with that they get access to data. We now get access to that data. Let's take advantage of that. No other state has access to that, at least that I'm aware of today. So it would be a mistake to not take advantage of all the resources that are available to us.
Absolutely. What a huge advantage for the state of Michigan, too. So we have another question from Frank Farrow. Fascinating topic. How should a small company present and explain this opportunity to its board or the entire company?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Frank. And the reason why is you remember the phrase, my mind, it escapes me, who said, Peter Drucker. Thank you. Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you go to the board and you say, hey, we got to change our culture. Tom Kelly says it's all messed up. They're going to say, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Right. So, you can't go in with that attitude. But the whole idea is, if you think about the entire society, and I'm not going too deep on you, but all of the society all around the world, people that are CEOs and in high management positions, whether you're a big company or a little company, they typically tend to be older like me or even older than me. And they were just at the cusp where they missed being technology natives. They view technology as a tool that is used to affect the business model they're trying to run. And that is fundamentally flawed. It's not true anymore. Technology is the business model. And so if you're a CEO and you're like, I don't really understand technology, that's my IT CIO does that. I just make sure he understands. Well, guess what? If you don't understand that technology is the business model going forward, you're in trouble from the start. So your board, Frank, needs to hear the message that technology first. Every single company in the world needs to be a digital company first that happens to be in the business of X. If you flip it on its head and you think you're in the business of X that happens to use technology, it's going to be a rough row to hoe for a long time, because it's only going to get more and more difficult for you to eke out a profit as the technology changes the business model and how you have to go to market to be profitable. You're just going to lose your competitive advantage slowly but surely. So I wish you great luck, and use the resources at Automation Alley. We have lots of ways. What I would recommend most, we have a free assessment sponsored by the MEDC. So we have what's called an evaluation, and you can take that right away. One person in your company can take that. If you need a deeper dive, we always recommend all of the company executives and some of the employees take the same assessment so that you can get a baseline of where is everybody's knowledge. That's what we recommend you should do.
Tom, can you tell us a little bit about how Automation Alley works with some of the other partners in the state to advance, manufacturers and their Industry 4.0 readiness?
Yeah, so we work with everybody. Remember, we're a knowledge center. So, well, a great example is that evaluation that I just talked about. So if you come to Automation Alley or you come to the MEDC and you say, I'm really interested about Industry 4.0, the first thing the MEDC is going to say is become a member of Automation Alley and take this first stage gate evaluation, just so we can all be preaching from the same hymnal and we all understand where are you needing help around Industry 4.0. We then partner with our friends at the MMTC, the center, where they have the ability to do deep dive consultation and come in and do an even deeper assessment around, okay, you really want to get moving. What are the projects you should focus on first? What are the things you should be doing that actually are tactical, where the rubber meets the road, right? So there's this process where you say, come into Automation Alley, become a member, start educating yourself, take an evaluation, figure out where you should go, and then do a deep dive to say, what exactly should I be doing? And that's all done between MEDC, Automation Alley, and the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center, the MMTC. And then, but lastly, I'll say all the economic development organizations around the state of Michigan, let's partner, because that evaluation is confidential, right? It's confidential between Automation Alley, MEDC, MMTC, and the manufacturer. We all sign a confidentiality. But if the manufacturer says, it's okay to share my information with my local economic development organization, right? Now, if you get your 30, 40, 50 manufacturers to do an evaluation and you get access to that data, you can aggregate all of this data, and it gives you such a great snapshot of how you should invest your economic development dollars to help those manufacturers, right? It all comes down to data. We all have to do a better job of collecting, using, and making sense of the data that we have available to us. And if we all start sharing that data in ways that do not put companies at risk, right? We have to be very sensitive about that. But if we use that data together, we can move the needle substantially, right? And our job at Automation Alley, and I know Natalie shares this, and so does Mike Costa of the MMTC, is, we have to win on the global stage. And the global stage is getting more and more competitive. And we don't have the opportunity to sort of wait. We have to move.
Absolutely. And especially with all the tremendous change we've undergone just in the last year, I feel like the technology implementation is accelerating, and the need for it is accelerating, and it's definitely something that should be on all of the manufacturers in the state's radar moving forward. So I know we're running low on time, so just wanted to thank you, Tom, for joining me today and walking us through Industry 4.0 and why it will continue to be so important here in the state of Michigan. And thank you to everyone that tuned in today. To learn more about Industry 4.0 and how your business can access the resources we talked about today, and support not only from MEDC, but also from our key industry experts at Automation Alley and the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center, please visit michiganbusiness.org/industry4-0. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.